Welcome everybody to the Small Firm Forum. I'm Rachel Slonicky. I'm repeating myself in case some people didn't hear me. Not that I'm got mental issues. I'm here with Sydney from the East Bay AIA and Donald and Linda, my co-hosts. And today Mohammed Al-Meldon is going to speak to us about State Bill 9 and also a little bit about ADUs. He's a policy associate at the Turner Center, and I think many of you know we had another Turner Center guest, but anyway, so glad to have him here today. And he brings the center's innovative research to inform housing policy at the local, state, and federal levels. And prior to joining the Turner Center, Mohammed was an economic equity fellow for the Green Lending Institute, a public policy research and advocacy social justice organization. He led the economic equity team's state legislative efforts in mortgage interest deduction reform and supporting equitable housing and policies, and he co-authored a fair financial system regulating fintech and non-bank lenders. Prior to his work at Green Lending, Mohammed communicated housing policy ideas to the public at California YMBY and successfully helped lobby Congress to start paying their legislative interns at Pay Our Interns. So I'm happy to read that actually. So he's also been a writer for The Atlantic, and I love that magazine. So kudos to you. And I'll please give a warm welcome to Mohammed.
Thank you, everyone. Just give me a second to share my screen. And even like before I even present on SB9 or what's going on with ADU policy, I'm just happy to be here with AIA East Bay, and it's a pleasure. I think before even I go into Senate Bill 9, the first question I usually get is what's going on with the legislature, because we had this sweeping land use bill. Is there anything else that's going to affect us possibly next year? Just so far, what we've been examining, new legislation. I wrote a piece on 70 different housing bills last month. We've seen that the legislature is going to be kind of stalemated for a while. There's no big land use changes that's going to happen. And that's because there's around 28 vacancies up for election this year. Big housing bills take 1 or 2 votes. So don't be surprised. You're going to learn SB9, and that information is going to be useful for at least the next year. And yeah, let me start with the presentation. Let's see, SB9. How do I slideshow? Does everyone see the slideshow? I think it's all presented. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and if you have any questions, please add them to the chat, and we'll have a little Q&A at the end. But my name is Mohammed Al-Meldon. I'm the first ever policy associate for the Turner Center. They like saying that. We're an extension of UC Berkeley. We do a lot of innovative research when it comes to housing in California nationally, and just one of the efforts trying to solve the current housing crisis. I'm right now doing an examination on SB9 implementation at the local level. So let's begin. Last year, the Turner Center had an analysis on the impact that SB9 could have in California, which means that about 1% of single family parcels would now be feasible to have an SB9 lot split, which is about 700,000 new homes. That is true if every local ordinance were to adopt SB9 dictated by the state, but localities have the discretion to implement SB9 as they see fit. This could actually limit the impact of 700,000 new homes. We've seen a lot of localities try to limit the intent of the law. And this is sort of foretelling on what would happen with other land use policies that are passed at the state level. There are 500 local jurisdictions in California, and basically we're making this laboratory of sorts on what happens when land use bills are passed. So a quick overview on SB9. some single family parcels, the messaging said that it would basically end single family zoning in California. That's true unless you're in like a flood zone, a historical area, a lot of other technicalities that I could send basically information about after this presentation. But the original intent was that for a single family home parcel with a lot split, there would be a total of 2 homes per split, which means 1 home becomes 4. This is a big change in California. There's been a lot of thought pieces on and just the truth on like how single family zoning was implemented to go against the Fair Housing Act in 1968. When fair housing passed, a lot of areas downzoned, most notably Berkeley was the first one to do it even before the Fair Housing Act, basically to keep low income and people of color out of their neighborhoods. This is a way that the state is attempting to rectify the wrongs, while at the same time help solve the housing crisis. Local jurisdictions have 2 options when it comes to SB9 implementation. They could either adopt the law as is, dictated by the state, or they could create a custom implementing ordinance. And it allows a lot of local discretion versus ADU policies that have been passed previously for local governments to really like utilize their ordinances to physically preclude a duplex or making it economically infeasible. So we have 500 different jurisdictions adopting SB9 policies. No 2 are the same. You look at Berkeley and Oakland, they're going to have different implementation of SB9, which really makes it difficult for small builders, architects, and the such to speak with one another on like, if someone does a project a town over, that's someone that you could have as a resource, but now it's different because every jurisdiction is going to have different rules. And here's an analysis of just strict SB9 requirements, 2 units per lot, 4 total. Localities have discretion on whether ADUs and JDUs could be added on each lot. See if they're separated to 2 single family homes, if an ADU could be added. I believe that HCD would see this a little bit against state housing law, which they might be able to turn in basically a letter to the city saying that they can't do that. It's more of a wait and see approach, but I haven't seen a lot of cities like outright outlaw ADUs and JDUs for an SB9 lot split. The minimum lot size is 40% of the existing unit, no less than 1,200 square feet. The minimum unit size is 800 square feet. They cannot, the local ordinances cannot preclude a unit size to be less than 800 square feet for any reason. The maximum unit size is up to discretion. No short-term rentals. The rental must be longer than 30 days if you're going to rent out an SB9 unit, and the owner must sign an affidavit that they will live on the property for 3 years. Side and rear setbacks, 4 feet maximum. Most localities have adopted just a 4-foot maximum. San Diego is very interesting. They do the 4-foot maximum setback if it's near if it's near a single family structure. But if it's near a multifamily structure, the setback and rear setbacks aren't there. When it comes to parking, the requirement is that only up to 1 parking spot per unit, unless near high frequency transit. If it's near high frequency transit or 1 block from rideshare, then no parking is allowed. And affordability requirements are up to local discretion. And when we're looking at how the implementation is happening, we're seeing common areas where discretion could limit SB9 uptake. Design limitations. There's localities have implemented height limitations. The maximum unit size would be like 800 square feet when the minimum is 800 square feet. So you can't build 1 square foot more than what's allowed on state law. Some do 850 square feet, really limits on the unit size. The height limitations, right? There's 14, 16 feet maximums, which really limits it to 1-story buildings. You might possibly get a 2-bedroom out of a SB9 lot split. And there's also design requirements that could hinder the building, right? By the way, we're not ranking cities in any way. This is a report card. We're just doing an analysis of what's happening. And this analysis was slated to be released yesterday, but we had to prolong it just to double check some figures. So to ensure variety in what we've examined, we looked at small and big cities across California. We observed several themes, as I discussed with design limitations. So like another design limitation that we've seen is like a pitch and setback requirements that limit the geometry of an SB9 unit, hindering its feasibility in a constrained space. Affordability requirements, 30-year deed restricted affordable housing without any subsidy by the local government. So at the same time, homeowners don't know how to build affordable housing. It's a very complicated thing to do. It's actually one of the longest sections of the tax code is to build an affordable housing unit. So there needs to be some technical, so for homeowners without the technical expertise, this is a huge limitation. We've also seen the use of land as a way to limit SB9 lot splits. They require like a 600-foot square open space between the two units. Big courtyards, no flag lots, just the classic ways of which they would try to limit it. They don't require this when it comes to just 2 homes on a lot in general. And now they start implementing it for SB9, and it leads to unequal application of standards, which we've seen. It's very common when it comes to local ordinances where they apply certain standards for SB9 lot splits that don't apply to single family homes or even ADUs.
Can I butt in a minute? The chat doesn't work for some reason. I don't know if Sydney could take care of that. You can't post, you can write, but you can't post. I just wanted to let you know that.
Oh.
I don't know why that is. I've seen some comments pop up that people have been able to post. I don't know. I can look into it.
Yeah, you could also just write it out in the box, and then after the presentation, you could raise your hand, and I could just call on you, and you could just ask the question that way too. Just get around the technological difficulties. Yeah, so examples for SB9 limiting requirements. 800 square foot maximum. We've seen that in Walnut Creek outside of the garage and carport. 850 square foot maximum in Martinez. We've witnessed cities require the bare minimum for the unit size, basically. So it'd be hard to build something more than a 1-bedroom. But in San Diego, we don't see a maximum unit size, which is really interesting. So you could build as big of a SB9 unit as you'd like. In San Jose, we've seen a 30-foot height maximum, unless it's within 20 feet of the rearmost property, then the max height is 20 feet. That's a pretty good policy. It really opens up the eligible parcels for SB9. And then we're looking at landscape design requirements. So we've seen in San Diego 1 tree per 5,000 square foot lot, and also complying with street tree regulations. We don't see that as like a hindrance when it comes to SB9 limitations. But then we would look at cities like Sonoma, where they require 3 mature trees and 10 mature shrubs, and Temple City, which says that no trees could be removed. Los Altos famously requires 15-gallon minimum at 5-foot interval hedges. These limits with mature trees and shrubs are sort of a restrictive design requirement, especially since homeowners will be mostly the ones that will have to finance these SB9 lot splits. We've also seen courtyards of 125 square feet surrounded by structures on 2 sides. Sonoma's is 600 square feet per unit, not occupied by structures, parkings, or driveways or anything. And then on top of that, I spoke about the height requirements, the affordable housing fees. Some places, as I said, affordable housing is a very difficult thing to build. At the same time, some localities are put impact fees on top of the affordable housing, which makes them completely infeasible to build, which we have a shortage on affordable housing, but this will result in no housing being built. When it comes to height limits, The no 2 stories is a huge limitation. We see like front setbacks being utilized, 40-foot front setbacks in Los Altos Hills, and I believe Beverly Hills. And also excessive easements, larger than they're needed for a car. San Jose has really carries the intent of the law when it comes to SB9, except for the 12-foot minimum easement. Sonoma has a 12 to 16-foot easement, but for parking has to be 20 feet. And some cities just outlaw flag lots outright. The last 2 points is something that we found in Temple City, which requires LEED Platinum certification for an SB9 lot split. If you're familiar with the LEED ranking system, that's similar to what you would need for a stadium. This requirement is very common when it comes to housing in general, at all actually. And Temple City is more of a car dependent place where the average home is over $1 million. They've outlawed parking. There's no overnight parking, no overnight parking passes. There's no infrastructure for walking or biking. So people are required to take Ubers everywhere. They've outlawed parking completely for an SB9 lot split. So the question is, how will the state monitor local SB9 compliance? So HCD provided a technical SB9 guidance fact sheet 2 Fridays ago. So last Friday because it's a rainy day. And at the same time, HCD may have authority under SB 330 to examine when capacity has been limited by SB9 requirements. If capacity has been limited, if the amount of housing has been limited by local ordinances for SB9, they may have the authority to send like a letter of concern or do some sort of enforcement. It was announced on Monday that HCD is sending letters to 29 cities. That was a big announcement actually. And then the California's Attorney General has the authority to enforce SB9 compliance if it's clear violation of the law. Most famously is Woodside when they declared themselves a mountain lion sanctuary. Also Pasadena declared itself all historical lands. The AG came in and was like, you can't do that. You have to try to at least implement state law. So it's just really interesting how like some localities like San Jose and San Diego really like go all out to implement SB9, but then other cities are really like trying to limit the spirit of the law. With this analysis, this really foretells what we could see when it comes to land use laws in the future. What we could do to assist SB9 implementation, because we always do research, people always wonder what we could do. You know, creating a culture of yes in the Bay Area is very important, but also properly calibrating land use guidelines for SB9 projects, similar to what we've done with ADUs in the past. We shouldn't like limit it as much, but we should at least like increase financing options, workforce development, help incubate nonprofits and for-profit small builders to start building in the space, because these big developers aren't going to build these SB9 lot splits. There's a labor shortage, if you've heard, and there's not a lot of people specialized when it comes to this sort of building small-scale housing. ADU policy has brought a few players into the space, but this could be a great opportunity to help build up POC builders, community builders, help subcontractors become general contractors and start running their own businesses. What we can also do is create pre-approved designs similar to ADUs in San Jose and the Great ADU Day, where the planning department works together to approve ADUs on Tuesdays. This could be done similar in other cities. This could also be done for SB9 lot splits. Really having the government in coordination with homeowners that are doing this for the first time is the pathway to ensure that we have more homes built. And also there has to be like methods to assist low to moderate income homes with SB9 lot splits. I know Oakland has a Keys to Equity program that's really interesting, run by East Bay Neighborhood Housing Services, which really helps starting Black developers build homes for low-income homeowners in Oakland. So then basically there's a training program, and also we can build ADUs, ADU equity in the space. This could be something very interesting that could be done in SB9. And also just creating copy and paste ordinances for local governments to basically help with SB9 implementation. A good example of this work, yes, okay, is what ABAG has done. They released this recently. The Association of Bay Area Governments, as they're known, created SB9 resources. So you could look at like templates and graphics. You could download a whole staff report, PowerPoint template. Really helps with local governments on implementing SB9. So there isn't so they don't have to deal with the AG's office or HCD. They have just the straight rules given to them by the Association of Bay Area Governments. And yeah, this is a lot of great information and technical assistance that could be implemented across the state. I need to share a different screen now, so let me find it. This is the Microsoft PowerPoint. Drawings, yeah, share. Does everyone see the PowerPoint? The new one, okay. So, my age is showing. I don't know how to use anything Microsoft, so bear with me. I grew up with Google, I grew up with Apple. We can play it like this. All right. So they also give basically design prototypes of which could be used for architects or for small firms that want to do SB9 lot splits. It's very interesting. It's also on the website. They're looking at like different ways of which this could be built. This is basically based on Burlingame. Looking at like with their zoning ordinances and what makes sense for that neighborhood. So like AVAG went out and just basically created these designs on what could be done on a lot split. And they go deep into like how the units could be built, what the rear yard, basically the carport, taking a standard like 6,000 square foot lot and with a front porch and all these other amenities. It goes even further to say how the layout of the housing could be. I don't know, I find this really interesting. I saw this yesterday and I was like, oh, I'm presenting to the architects. They might enjoy this. They might not enjoy this. I'm sorry for the assumption. But it's really interesting when they work with an architectural firm and create these designs to really help out more to be created in the space. This is the second floor plan for duplex, standard lot, front elevation. So you see the two separate entrances. And I have to say these buildings are kind of pretty. So this is like what could be done with an SB9. It's not like a degradation to neighborhood character, right? Like these look like they fit very well with what's already available in the neighborhood. And they break down the parcels right here. This is all. So this is, I'm just going to end it out with a slideshow. Making it with wood trims, what could be built. And yeah, bungalow style. So I really recommend looking at this. I believe it was prepared by Drilling Architecture for the Associated Bay Area Governments. This is all available on the website if you'd like to reach out. But yeah, I will stop sharing there. I will look at what is going on. I mean, Okay. And what areas? I'm reading the chat questions just to see what I can answer. For a fun little thing, whenever I'm in a room with architects, I always ask if there's one building code that you could just get rid of. That makes your job so much easier. And like, it's still like good for safety and everything. What would it be? Or if you could add one, what would it be? You could put the answers in the chat. For John, yes, when without municipal waste, water treatments, septic system ordinances could be used to limit additional homes or ADUs. We've seen it a few times. I honestly would talk to like a developer in the area to see if it like really limits it or not, because every locality is different, especially when it comes to the cost of creating something like this. The local jurisdictions restrictions legal, Remy. I would say, yeah, there was a lot of discrepancy given to SB9 policy, the SB9 law that people weren't aware of. There's some that are illegal, that are outright illegal, because it's supposed to be like objective design standards, right? It's not supposed to be subjective. It's supposed to be like ministerial. But if they set out the objective standards to be 14 pages of architectural designs on Spanish colonial architecture that they need to build with real marble on the outside of the home, no fake marble, which I've seen in Southern California. That's how local jurisdictions are trying to restrict, and HCD and the AG's office will most likely eventually come after these localities. Can you, use of land? Yeah, use of land is just required usable open space when it comes to a lot. So like, let's say you have to have 600 square feet of open land. That makes a lot of parcels ineligible for an SB9 lot split, which really limits how many could be built. If the easement's too large, then a lot of parcels just don't count.
Oh, cool.
And then how long are cities typically taking an ADU permit process? Yeah, so I believe by law it has to be like 60 days in some parts of the ADU process. It has to be like very quick. But at the same time, right, like SB 35, which is like the streamlining of affordable housing, cities could go around that by having a pre-approval process, right? So like there's some strategies that localities still implement to limit like ADU policies. But what we've seen is that ADU policies are significantly popular when it comes to homeowners, right? Like you could use your backyard to gain wealth. You can move to that ADU unit and rent out the front. A lot of policies that I would say help homeowners a lot aren't as hindered by local governments after like people see the effects of this new construction being built. For cities that are typically trying to discourage SB9 projects, yeah, there will be legal challenges by the AG's office. They're mostly a letter will stop them. I don't think anything else. Current situation with Oakland, Berkeley with SB9, I believe they're still in the process of deciding to develop a local ordinance. Andrew, I could also see that they might just adopt state policy. I know Berkeley's toying with this program for 4-unit lots, like 4-plex legalization across the city. I would talk to just their planning department to see what's going on. They might not even have had an SB9 application, which is what's common too, right? This is such a new policy. Who wants to be first? Who wants to deal with the development headache first for every one of these localities? ADU permitting is 9 to 12 months. Yeah, it depends every state. Are any cities considering impact of water, traffic? Linda, I believe some cities are talking about water demand and the such when it comes to the proliferation of ADUs. At the same time, when it comes to energy use, it depends on like how the ADUs are built. There could be some like green building codes implemented with ADU like construction that could be introduced to the space that don't hinder its development, right? Like we don't want to like be so green, we don't let people build, like LEED Platinum certification. But yeah, there's been some talk, but I don't think it's been too impactful. There's a lot of people just living in people's homes already. There's overcrowding is a huge issue in Los Angeles and in the Bay Area, as you all know. I don't think it would add traffic by having ADUs. You're just moving people from the front of the house that are overcrowded to the back. But there's also a lot of variations on what on ADU policies too. Book being shown available online. Yes, ABAG's thing is available online. I'll send the link in a second. Financial aid, grants, loans for ADUs and SB9 qualified clients. So I know for ADUs, CalHFA has upped their grant to $40,000, and they're rolling out money through their program right now. I believe San Mateo Credit Union is underwriting ADUs through like future rentable income. So I know that they're working with, I believe it's Hello Housing or All Home, one of the two, and they're like the first like financial institution in the country that's creating this new system of financing ADUs. So that's of interest. So yeah, CalHFA, San Mateo Credit Union. We have a paper on ADU financing set to release in less than 2 weeks. It's mostly catered to the federal level, but it would show like what people have been using to finance ADUs. And I really do recommend reaching out to the Casita Coalition. They're the experts in the space. They're on the front lines. And they have a lot of webinars on financing ADUs. Casita Coalition. Yeah, one statewide planning building code, consistency, fire zones. Yeah, I will send the link, site plans for all splits. Yeah. To maximize. Could you discuss issues regarding SB9 and the coastal zones? Yeah, so I'm looking at, I was looking at Santa Barbara, I believe Goleta, and Carlsbad, and I believe they're all within the coastal zones. So like the city has different requirements for areas in the coastal zone and areas that are outside of the coastal zone. I'll be honest, it's kind of tricky because you will have like 2 different standards being applied because coastal zones have like the sort of exemption when it comes to SB9 implementation. If you're working with a city, I would say like work closely with the city if you're going to do something in a coastal zone. Yeah. I think can an owner process an SB9 app in a jurisdiction that has a formally adopted local ordinance or state law? So all of the cities have the state law implemented automatically. They could choose to do a local ordinance if they'd like. I'm just replying to SDG architects. So if a city doesn't have a local ordinance, they still have to accept SB9 by the minimum requirements set by the state. I'm also not a lawyer, but I know that that's like I heard that's the standard. Cities don't have to adopt anything. So we've been seeing a lot of cities in the Central Valley, the Inland Empire, Northern California. They either don't have the planning capacity or they just want to implement the state standards when it comes to an SB9 law split. Yeah, I believe I answered all the questions. Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask like vocal questions?
I do have a quick question. How do we make sure we get the report or the article that you're writing about the financing, like on the federal level for ADUs? I think I should get it, but I don't know if I'm on the right list to get your that article.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, so it's a research paper. Y'all could just sign up for our newsletter because you're just going to get it when it releases. That's the easiest way. Let me send it. Thank you so much. And also let me send basically ABAG SB9. Oh wait, I sent that to Dawn specifically. I'm sorry. Let me send it to everyone. So this is ABAG. SB9 has everything, all the templates that they're going to use for local governments. If you want to know about ADU financing at the state level, the Coastal Commission hasn't been receptive. I'm not sure. Here's our newsletter when it comes to ADU financing. I need to look into the Coastal Commission soon. It's just been, you should see these ordinances. They are so long. Yeah, the housing plans are at the top. So this is the newsletter. These are the housing plans that they kind of drafted up. You have to download it to your computer, so I can't send it specifically. Thank you for your question, Lisa. And when it comes to cities and restriction SB9 fires, high fire. So if it's like very high fire zones, I believe that SB9 does not apply. When it comes to high fire, that could actually be up to the locality. I've seen some localities do it. At the same time, I don't know if it's legal. I would talk to people in the city of Berkeley and Oakland to see like what's allowed. I know there's some debate when it comes to that topic. And Donald.
Yes, Mohammed, you said, and I quote, big developers are not going to build SB9 units. One of the changes in the housing market I've noticed in the last year or two, others have noted this, is that a substantial percentage of single family home sales are not being bought by buyers intending to live in the house. They're being bought by investment groups and who will then turn them into rentals. Now, that's one complication because I think your rules have something to do with the homeowner living in the house for a certain period of time, right? On the other hand, one of the problems that you mentioned was that constructing these kinds of things may be beyond the expertise of the ordinary homeowner. It's complicated to do low-income housing, high-density housing, and all those kinds of things. I'm just wondering, you know, investment groups may have a broader base of resources that they can draw upon and bring to bear on the thing. And so my question really is, do you see these investment groups, although not originally envisioned this way, as having perhaps a larger role in how all this plays out?
Yeah, so when it comes to SB9 implementation and investment groups, it has to be owned by so there needs to be a signed affidavit by the owner to live there for 3 years. So there's a legal document that someone needs to live there for 3 years. It has to be the homeowner that lives there for 3 years. So currently the way SB9 has been crafted is that like a big corporation can't come in and buy it. And also at the same time, I've seen cities say that an SB9 lot split has to be done by someone of like natural persons, which means it can't be done by an LLC. So that's a restriction that could be implemented by local governments as an extra remedy to ensure that investors aren't coming in, buying in, and doing SB9 lot splits. I have seen an organization sprout out that's really interesting. So they're doing they're kind of like a developer doing SB9 lot splits, but the way that they're doing it is that they go to homeowners and they say, hey, if you do an SB9 lot split, we will build it for you. You don't have to worry about plans or permits or anything. And we will give you 80% of the profits from the home built. So then homeowners suddenly get hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity from just selling their backyard unit, and still that eases the housing crisis. So I could see like these sort of systems being developed, right? Like it's not the investor buying the home, taking it out of the market and doing an SB9 lot split, but more like, and this is like one case that I've seen in the state of California and our very new organization, coming into the homeowner saying, hey, if you're going to live here for 3 years, we could split the lot in the back and we could build another unit and we'll give you 80% of the profits. So that's what we're seeing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Remy?
Remy is muted.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Oh, you're unmuted.
Am I good now? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
It's asking me if I'm allowed to take pictures and all this crazy stuff. Sorry about that. So my question was on, we were looking at one of these for a client in Oakland. And Oakland says, well, because you're in an RM1, which is basically a single family zoning, but with a, like, what did he call it? A discretionary conditional use, if you want to put a duplex. So they said, well, that means it's kind of a duplex zone. So they said that SB9 couldn't be done.
Mhm.
So is that even legal, or is this kind of a gray area where, you know, you have the bigger cities that have these funny zonings, like what's it, MU1 or whatever this one in Oakland is?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because you're getting to something that we didn't necessarily cover in the PowerPoint because I do not get involved with San Francisco politics. I am already balled from
This is
housing.
Oakland.
I do not want to lose more hair. Yeah, I know it's Oakland, but San Francisco is implementing something where they might do single family home, like they might change all their R1 zonings to R2 zonings, duplexes all around.
Mm-hmm.
And basically to circumvent SB9 because their duplex requirements are more restrictive than their R1 requirements due to SB9.
So it
So
would be
like
similar having to go through a CU, right? And planning commission, neighborhood review and all that nonsense.
exactly, it would be completely subjective again. Oakland has been better when it comes to implementing SB9. I guess that was just one area that was already zoned for a duplex. Like we haven't witnessed them do something like this, and no locality has outright done this, but there have been discussions in localities of doing this.
Well, the issue is this particular zone, it's not a slam dunk because you need to get a CU, which is discretionary, to get the duplex in this particular zone. And it's all over Oakland. It's all in the Flatlanders area.
Really?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
why I was surprised. I think, oh, well, you know, they'll just give us an SB9 on this. But they said no.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking, because it's been a long day, what's a CU again?
A conditional use permit, which is
Got it.
100% discretionary. You got to go through all the neighborhood this. I mean, they give me a 15-point, 15-page checklist of stuff I had to do to submit this guy.
Thank you for flagging that to my attention.
And this is a guy, who wants to just build a duplex on this currently single family building that's on the side. He wants to take it out and put a duplex. Really simple. Should be simple.
Yeah. And
They're making us run through hoops.
yeah, so thank you for flagging that because that's important. I'm gonna add that to the analysis and look into it a lot more. I know in Los Angeles, I spoke to someone that said like we can't do an SB9 law split because in the city of Los Angeles or one of those small villages, small cities, sorry. LA is weird. Because if you want to do a lot split, you have to have 2 different meters, but then water meters. But then since it's on a single family residence, they won't let you do the two different meters. So then you have to go through the other department. So you're not allowed to do an SB9 lot split because of all these technicalities when it comes to just like utilities, right? And there's a lack of communication between departments. So it's really interesting that you brought up this conditional use because I'm working with Bay Area governments on stuff like this. So I'm gonna bring this to their attention. Thank you so much, Remy.
The other interesting thing, this is again in the flatlands of Oakland, where you do want to get more affordable housing and in where the land is a lot cheaper than, let's say, Piedmont or Berkeley or Palo Alto, these other high-end cities. I mean, Oakland flatlands. So I think it's potentially discriminatory policy as well, right? Because I don't see a reason why SB9 wouldn't apply. It's basically the underlining zoning is single family, and it's not really duplex because you got to get a CU, and they're going to always turn you down at conditional use phase.
Remy, I'm gonna send you my email address. Could you send me just like this scenario so I could talk to their planning department?
Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be great. I mean,
Yeah,
we
I'm
kind of
gonna-
did a workaround on it by saying we're going to do the CU and then put a couple of ADUs in the back. But, you know, it's less valuable because he doesn't have 2 lots, obviously.
Yeah. No, definitely. I tell you my email in the chat. I'd love to discuss this
Okay.
because this is important. And I know people in the Oakland Planning Department, so maybe they could like help change a little bit
Oh,
of
okay,
this.
yeah, let me
Yeah.
get in touch on this one. Yeah, before
Yeah.
I go too far to see you. You know, there's a
Yeah.
better way. You want to know.
No, definitely. And so I see Alyssa and then Deborah, if that's okay. I don't know who raised their hand first. One's virtual, one's like a physical.
Oh, sorry, I'll be quick. I just,
Okay.
do you mind sharing the name of the organization that you mentioned prior to Remy's question that does have that model of partnering with the homeowner? Because I'm sure, as you know, us as an organization is trying to craft a way that we could, you know, make it easier out here in the Inland Empire, which is, you know, feels like it's decades behind what's happening up north and, you know, even far behind what's happening in LA. But if we could partner with them or, you know, bring their model over to our market would be something I know our organization would be interested in.
Yeah, here's their organization. I think I promised you. Let me see. I'm gonna send it to you in a private message.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And someone wants to reshare the link of the drawings. And let me see. One more time, here is the link for the drawings, and then Deborah.
Yeah, I heard, I'm kind of looking at the drawings and doing a few different things, but I also have a project where we weren't even trying to do a lot split, but to add 2 units in Oakland in a single family house. We were raising it anyway because of a foundation. And it's going to take like an extra 9 months to go through planning. And really, we could have added 2 small units, but the best use of the lot, we went back and forth, was to raise the house and add a unit at ground level. So you have 2 like 1,500 square per unit. So we weren't splitting it, but it's just like, we're going to go through, it's going to be 9 months just to get through planning. It's crazy. And then after that is when you're allowed to do a condo split, and before somebody inhabits it. And that will put 2 usable houses at beginning level on the lot, which seems like it's something that is needed. It's near Piedmont Avenue, but boy, the city is not helpful with it at all, with what they do, because ADUs are allowed by right, but you're not allowed to add a unit by raising a house by right. And forget about, we're not even trying to split the lot. We're just doing that because that's what makes sense, because we need to fix the foundation. So I don't know if you're at all. And as far as like small time developers who I work with a lot, we add ADUs, we take homes that are really unusable and create something that's more desirable in the market. And they're not going to wait 9 months. They're not going to, there's no incentive just to add they can't, the holding costs are too much to do that. So all these opportunities where you could raise houses and create lower units which is the best use for a lot of these houses. There's just a major problem with the time it takes to get through zoning.
Okay, yeah. So like one thing comes to mind. Number one, I might follow up, Deborah, because I think we just finished our focus groups, but we have a future paper coming in on missing middle housing. looking at the barriers that we see throughout California and throughout nationally on what's the barriers of missing middle housing, which is 2plexes to like 20 plexes.
Right.
So we might, I mean, like we're a research organization, but like our research goes far. So I will, if you could send me your email in the chat.
Yeah,
And
because
will
I
talk-
have, yeah, and also the other thing, yeah, I can send it to you. The other thing with Oakland is if you want to improve a building, you can't, you're only allowed to add 99% of the existing building. So you can't improve a building and add the ADU in back because it's too much square footage. So then again, you're through this ridiculous long 9-month process. So the developers don't do it. And there's a lot, I work with a lot of these small time developers that want to do it, but they don't want to take 9 months. So, okay, I'll send you my email, and because I have a lot of experience with what goes on with Oakland around this. And you would think they would be wanting to encourage this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I know like Oakland, when it comes to cities across California, it's like a lot more pro housing. So like
But
even
it's
just
not.
these small technical, yeah. because
It's
these
not
small-
when it comes to it. And, you know, I've argued with them saying an ADU is allowed by right, but they say, no, that's true. But you want to also develop the existing house. Well, yeah, the existing house is like an antiquated dark floor plan, and it's just it makes sense to do both. But okay, so I'll send you my email, and I could, it's nice to know that there's someone that's going to fight this battle, because I've tried.
Yeah, if anything, like I will send it. My boss is conducting this research. I want to see if he would be able to just like do like a quick like 10-minute
That's fine.
call. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
So I just sent it. So,
Yeah, I sent it to him already. Yeah.
okay, great. Thanks. All right.
Okay. Anytime. Yeah, Rachel.
So I just have a quick question, and this is, forgive my ignorance, but during COVID, I thought we had a mass exodus out of California. And do we still have a housing crisis?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. So we've never had a mass exodus out of California. So what we've seen is that 80% of people that moved in California like stayed in California. Most of the people that left. So what we're doing is we're kind of like displacing and gentrifying the whole state. So like lower income people are moving to like Nevada, Texas, Oregon, outside of California because they can't afford it anymore. The housing crisis, I believe, is due to underproduction for like 40 years. I saw a new study coming out, and I can't say the numbers, but we're very short on housing. Regular market rate housing, affordable housing, we're short on any housing. And that ADUs could be a pathway to keep more low to moderate income people within the state. We did an ADU statewide survey last year that found 80% or 75%. I should look at the numbers, so don't quote me on it. But I know that a strong majority of over 70% of homes were affordable for people making 80% area median income or less. So that means that low income and lower could afford the ADUs, and that less than, I think like 10% were used for like short-term rentals. Like it was a very small number. So most of the time when we're building ADUs, it's going to people that need them the most, who need to stay in California and need the housing. It could also be rented out to like your grandparents, or like your grandparents can live there and they could rent out the front house to like their children and their families or something like that, right? Because they don't need all that space. Many different forms of multi-generational housing, or just because the cost of the ADU is so low, We just need to figure out more financing options because if we utilize ADU policies, I believe the Turner Center, we found like 1.8 million ADUs could be built in the state of California due to how many parcels we have in the state. So we make it easier. We could ease the housing crisis in this way. And building with gentle density, that's not messing with the neighborhood character. You know, there's not a lot of fight when it comes to that. At the same time, when you build gentle density like this, you might have more frequent transit times. You might have other more homes in low VMT areas, low vehicle miles traveled areas, which means that we're helping solve like what's going on when it comes to the climate crisis. So housing policy is climate policy. It's also health policy because overcrowding, as we've seen with the pandemic, has led to a lot of people like being sick because they were in forced close quarters. We saw this in Los Angeles. So like by building more homes and building more density and having people live in these places, we protect the environment, people's health, people's wealth, and other possibilities. So yeah, that's a long-winded thing. I also want to say when people say, oh, rich people are leaving California, this and that, I saw this study in Stanford a few years ago that said like divorce is a higher, divorce is a bigger reason for rich people leaving California than taxes. So it's like, and we're not trying to stop divorce, right?
So my follow-up question is, so the lot split, is it really a lot split or could it be like a condo type thing? You know what I mean? Like you really have to have 2 parcels of land, like for the 2 units? Because when you do a condo split, aren't you in essence creating like separate parcels? Or
Yeah. Oh yeah, so you're doing separate parcels. So a regular single family home in California, with all conditions met, can build an ADU and a JDU. That's original what can happen in a single family home, triplex zoning that they call it. You could do a lot split too if you want to sell the other parcel, and they can have 2 units there too, which is a single family home with an ADU, single family home with a JDU, or duplex. And that's the other option, which is kind of like condos and stuff. I know that there was a bill passed last year where I believe a nonprofit developer could sparse out units in a way that legalized bungalow courts in California. And I believe the first bungalow court project is being done by Soup, soup.is or soup.inc. They're doing one in the Southern Peninsula. So that's like the first one. Also in San Diego, if you're adjacent to transit within, I believe, a quarter mile, you could build like an unlimited amount of ADUs, which is also another way to build like bungalow courts. So like it's popping out in different places, but it's not really done statewide.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another quick question, I guess, to piggyback off of Rachel's question. That 3-year affidavit, so if you do meet all the conditions and are able to get past that and you do the lot split, does that 3 years hold you from selling that other parcel, or you can sell the other parcel at the beginning, but still with the condition that you're going to stay in one of the parcels for those 3 years?
The second one, you have to stay in one of the parcels for 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. But you can sell the other parcel right off the bat.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
But-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deb, I have one other question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What about, have you guys looked in, not that this is, looked into Prop 13 and how that's affecting stuff? And something that's not even on that topic, but I really don't think, it kind of piggybacks on my previous thing, is I like flats because there's so many foundations that are brick, and which leans toward raising the house and sometimes and improving in that way, and possibly, which I can talk to your person about, but ADUs are not that livable as, you know, like flats, but I guess I can, it's just something that I feel like people shouldn't be squished into these little houses. And the rent is not that much different really for a flat or an ADU, but that's,
Mhm.
what about Prop 13 and how that's affecting all of that in California?
Yeah, so
Or-
when it comes to, oh, sorry.
Or maybe that's
Yeah.
just, that's too out of your focus, but are you looking at that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so when it comes to the ADU, a lot of ADUs could be like 600 square feet, like it could be like an entry level home, it could be like 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet, right? Like if the local government doesn't put much of a limitation, and or if they expand on
Right.
ADU policy passed by the state, it's not that bad. Also, it's a newer unit compared to an older unit,
Right.
so them being the same cost is like a little like, whoa, no way, like this costs the same as this other unit that's been here for 40 years. So it shows like
Right.
how affordable it is in general. When it comes to Prop 13, the Turner Center does not have any, I don't believe we have any papers on Prop 13. But me personally, I have a lot of thoughts on Prop 13. And that is for a whole different chat when we don't have
That's what I
58
figured.
people on the call. Yeah. Yeah, one day.
Thank you. I
someone
just
could
thought
fund
I'd
us.
throw it out because it's kind of the elephant in the room in a way. But
It always is.
Could you talk a little bit about the Prop 13? It is a huge issue in the state. Thank you.
I'll be honest, I can't. If in the future, when the Turner Center has the financial backing to write very long pieces of papers for years of research on Prop 13, I will come to this group and I will talk your ear off. But for right now, I have to be representative of Turner. So you could always email me and I could give my very many thoughts on Prop 13. And you know, it's not one side or the other, right? There's a lot of caveats, there's a lot of advantages to Prop 13. At the same time, it's really helped cause this housing crisis. And I'll pass it to Donald.
Yeah, I have a Prop 13 question, but it's not whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just that when a homeowner decides to do this SB9 lot split, end up with more pieces of property or more parcels or whatever, both under the federal tax code and Proposition 13, that can affect the appraised value of their house and their property tax. And so for an older couple, let's say that's been there for a while, they might see a very large, I mean, I've been in this house for 30 or 40 years. And so, you know, it goes up 2% per year, but it's way below market value, right? So does this mean that regardless of whether 13 is good or bad politically, does this mean in a way that for some people, going this route is going to hit them with an unexpected tax penalty?
So I'm not sure on how SB9 lot splits work when it comes to Prop 13, especially when there's when Prop 19 passed last year. So I would say personally to talk to like a real estate attorney and like figure it out. I'll be honest, I just don't know. And there was a question from Jacob: are properties within an HOA exempt or just limited in their ability to build additional units? Yeah, so HOAs, you cannot use, an HOA cannot limit ADUs or JDUs from being built. That's what I believe. But when it comes to SB9, HOAs supersede basically lot splits. That's an interesting thing that's developed, but I know that you could still do the ADU policies. Dia Tamad, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong.
I guess I'm just trying to picture in the fabric that I see, like, I don't even know where I do a lot split because the houses take up so much of the lot. There's not even like, I'm trying to imagine. And even, yeah, so I don't know where these are being done. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so so I believe that like some cities have mapped out like specific parcels that most likely have SB9 eligibility. And I think even like homestead.is has like a search where you could search the property and it could tell you if it's most likely eligible for an SB9 lot
But
split.
like the
Right.
house raise we're doing now and going for the 9-month thing. We could split our lot, but it doesn't make any sense because there's already a house on a lot and then a driveway on the side of the house. And there'd really be no way to get the parking the way it is. I mean, hence it's easier to raise the lot. And I think of all the lots I've worked on. And even if supposedly you can because of their size, the existing housing is not built, unless you want to raise it and start all over again, which is a whole nother bag of worms, because then you're like going through design review is like a total nightmare, and the fees and everything else, and everybody tries not to do that. So it becomes really expensive. I don't know where this is being done after all of this. I just thought I'd say it.
Yeah. Our analysis found like 700,000 across the state. I could check the paper to see how many in the Bay Area are eligible, but yeah, no, I agree with you. There's elements within the law of which really like limit where lot splits could be done, and that's why the Turner Center said it's just like 1% of all single family homes could even do this, right?
Okay.
So that's the limitation we found. But I'll pass it to Dietmar.
Yeah, hi. Dietmar. Yeah, thank you. So I want to piggyback onto the Prop 13 question. So also encourage, you admitted you don't know the answer, and that's fine. But I think like a policy center like yours, like a think tank, so to speak, needs to because you kind of in a way have the leisure to do this, because we design houses all day. And I think this would be very valuable for a group like this to have answers on these more complicated questions that go into the financing. It's not just the Prop 13 implications, which I agree can be massive. It's a complete showstopper. It would sink many ships before they leave the port. But the other thing is insurance, because if somebody has a mortgage, your lot is the collateral for that mortgage. So what happens if you suddenly split off the rear half or side half of your lot? And then, then do you have to refinance? Many people refinanced in the last few years under 3%. Now interest rates exceeded 5%. Here's another huge showstopper, I think. And that, of course, relates to the question, do you have to refinance, or what way of documentation is needed? And I can tell you, if every individual homeowner and or their architects would need to walk through that morass of bureaucracy and figure it out, it would just be prohibitive. So I think there's a lot that needs to be sorted out on, and we had talked about utilities, where you ask 3 people, you get 3 different answers. And there was earlier the condo question, of course, and just to be clear, a condo is a single parcel. That's the whole idea of a condo. It's a tenancy in common that you create on a single parcel. If you do a lot split, by definition, you're splitting a lot into 2 separate parcels. And then that again goes back into the realm of the tax assessor. So this is all almost dizzying. And I think it would be helpful to, in addition to have the graphics that show the physical environment. Here's an empty lot, and now you see 2 houses, and now you see 4. Or here you see a house that's a lot that starts with 1 house, and then you see 2, or you see 4. I think having a graphic matrix that analyzes these kind of administrative burdens, the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, would be extremely helpful to get this off the ground. Thank you.
Yeah. Dietmar, feel free to I'm sorry if I said your name wrong again. Feel free to go to the Turner Center's website. We have a series of papers on the cost of building and a lot of the burdens that are set there. that was released right before COVID-19. So there was enough traction on that. And we also have a missing middle paper discussing like these sort of limitations also.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yeah, I agree. This is like, it's going to take, I mean, there's 700,000 units that are like, there's market feasibility to do SB9 law splits. Doesn't mean all of them are going to be done. Doesn't even mean half of them are going to be done. We'd be lucky if we see like 300,000, because like, who wants to deal with the construction? Who wants to deal with the financing? Who wants to deal with the administrative? Like, there's a lot of things that are hindering like this law from being utilized across the state. That's why we haven't seen a lot of applications across the state. And with local governments limiting what could be done even on top of that, we have this scenario where like it could even become just more difficult to do, just build 2 homes on a property or 4 homes on a property, which is a property you pay for. But yeah, I digress. Yeah, thank you for the thought. Please sign up for our newsletter. It's on the chat, so you can get the missing middle paper and like look at like everything that's coming out. I'll also pass it to Winston. I believe Winston's the last question before I pass it back to IA East Bay.
Yes, and thank you for the presentation. Maybe piggybacking a little off of Dietmar's last comment about some sort of graphic matrix. I was really interested, in how you started to mention these other examples of like bungalow courts and different things that are being tried in different areas. If do you have any sort of like resource for, these things that you're starting to see? Is there someplace people can go to see some of these things?
I wish. This like just the things I've been seeing is due to my experience at the Green Lining Institute and also at the Turner Center. There isn't like a collection of it everywhere except for housing Twitter, which it's not worth it. So like I wish there was a place of resources of all the things that are happening in California and everything that's happening. Following the legislation is one part, but the implementation is another. I wish there was, and maybe one day if enough people come together, we can just put it all on one place for everyone to find it. But yeah, I hear you. I agree with you. I wish it could happen, but even just like, finding affordable housing in California is even through like one website, right? It's through so many different websites to find an affordable unit. So we have like so many different problems on like just knowing what's out there already that we're trying to bring together. But yeah, I hear you. I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to talk. Also my Twitter. But yeah, I agree. And I could send over examples if you ask me personally. Let's do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. It definitely overlaps with conversations I'm trying to have at, both AIA East Bay level and AIA California and the Housing Congress over here and Housing Forum over here. I think there's a lot of opportunity because I think a lot of people are thinking about the issue and thinking, well, how can we help to move the ball forward? How can we kind of aggregate our resources or different parts we know about to kind of help move things forward?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I love that we ended on this. It's like, what can we do? And we're lucky that we're in the Bay Area where we have like ABAG and TC, at least like helping out with just these guidelines of these designs. And also we have like RHNS doing this in Oakland and other organizations that are looking at ways of solving the housing crisis here. We should have everyone together. But yeah, I'll pass it back to the moderators or the hosts.
Well, thank you, Mohammed, for a really brilliant presentation. I think we should all give a little round of applause and look forward to seeing everybody next month. Donald, do you have anything else?
I'd like to know why you keep looking at Barry
At Barry?
on your screen. Never mind. Time to go home.
Okay. See you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
my email's on the chat if anyone needs it.
Thank
Let's
you.
keep it open for a minute. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Sure.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye,
Nice
everyone.
to see everybody.
It's a great chat.